Chapter 34:21. The 5 experts attacked Man-Ku at the same time. Each of their attacks could easily kill a large number of ordinary peak divine kings. Swoosh. At the critical moment, Man-Ku swung his sword horizontally. The sword light was like a rainbow, covering the sky as it chopped down on the 5 attacks. 5 consecutive huge explosions rang out. All 5 attacks were blocked by Man-Ku. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wishes. Man-Ku looked at Fu Xiu and the others with a ferocious expression. Man-Ku, although you are strong, you are not invincible in the Divine King realm. Fu Xiu said calmly. However, his aura was getting stronger. Roar. Suddenly, Fu Xiu let out a roar and his body swelled rapidly. He turned into a rhinoceros. The rhinoceros was covered in black scales and had a pair of wings. There was a horn on its head that was as sharp as a heavenly blade. The rhinoceros was huge. It did not stop growing even when it was 10,000 meters tall. In the end, it was at least 50,000 meters tall and 100,000 meters long. It was even bigger than Man-Ku when it spread its wings. The 8th transformation of the primordial divine body. Your primordial divine body has reached the 8th transformation. Man-Ku's expression changed drastically as he exclaimed, Man-Ku, you are not the only one who has reached the 8th transformation. I have reached the 8th transformation as well. I can break through your barbarian divine body. Fu Xiu's voice came from the rhinoceros. The horn on his head shone brightly and emitted a terrifying aura. At the same time, a bronze blade appeared and merged with the horn on his head. The blade was Fu Xiu's origin secret technique. You are only at the middle stage of the 8th transformation. Do you think you can fight me? Man-Ku shouted. You can do it with us. Another young man said. He finally had some confidence after seeing Fu Xiu's primordial divine body. Then let's try. Man-Ku shouted and swung his bronze sword at Fu Xiu and the other 4. The 4 of you restrain him. I will be the main attacker and break through his defense. Fu Xiu sent a message to the other 4 young men. As soon as he finished speaking, he flapped his wings and flew out. His horn shone brightly and combined with his origin secret technique, it made his body look like a war blade. He pierced through the air and charged at Man-Ku. Die! Man-Ku brandished his bronze greatsword and chopped down. Clang! The giant bronze sword collided with Fu Xiu's horn, resulting in an earth-shattering roar. Boundless energy swept out in all directions, leaving terrifying sword and saber scars on the ground of Fengyun Peak. Retreat! The other people at the scene didn't dare to stay. They all stayed far away. Lu Ming brought the Dragon Alliance members and retreated far away, maintaining a distance from the battlefield. Attack! At this moment, the other 4 top experts also took action. They turned into their original divine bodies and dashed toward Man-Ku. One of them actually turned into an incomparably huge spider, but it had 18 claws. It opened its mouth and a huge spider web flew out, enveloping Man-Ku. There was also a young man who had transformed into a giant snake with a human face and a snake body. He opened his mouth and spat out a poisonous mist. When heaven and earth were first created, many primitive divine spirits were born. These primitive divine spirits came in all shapes and sizes. Many of them were even the ancestors of the various races. Therefore, the primitive divine bodies that were cultivated came in all shapes and sizes. These 4 young experts were also the leaders of their respective forces. In Fengyun Peak, they were as famous as Bing Tong and Lu Tianxin. Their primitive divine bodies were also existences who were about to enter the 8th transformation. Their combat strength was not weak at all. The 4 of them joined forces, not to attack but to trap Man-Ku. They used all kinds of methods to envelop him. Break! Man-Ku blocked Fu Xiu's attack and swung his sword horizontally, trying to break out of the encirclement of the 4 experts. However, the 4 experts flashed and dodged Man-Ku's attack. Then they used all kinds of methods to attack Man-Ku, hoping to trap him. For a moment, Man-Ku was somewhat affected and his movements slowed down. For example, the snake venom was extremely terrifying and could paralyze the nerves. The spider web was extremely tough. When Man-Ku swung his sword, it didn't immediately unravel. Instead, it almost entangled him. Fu Xiu wouldn't miss this opportunity. He flapped his wings and charged toward Man-Ku. Clang! Fu Xiu's head collided with Man-Ku's body, making an ear-piercing sound. The crystal-like stone armor on Man Ku's body trembled violently. In the next moment, a crack was heard and the stone armor cracked. Fu Xiu's horn pierced through it. Man Ku let out a roar and took a few steps back. Then he threw a punch at Fu Xiu, knocking him back. However, a bloody hole still appeared on Man Ku's body, and blood kept flowing out. It's broken. The other 4 young experts were overjoyed when they saw this. Fu Xiu was indeed able to break through Man Ku's defense. As long as he could break through Man Ku's defense, it would be easy to kill him. Attack with all your might. The other 4 young geniuses used their full strength, using all sorts of entrapment techniques to surround Man Ku. Man Ku tried his best to break free, but it was difficult for him to do so. His movements were greatly affected. On the other side, Fu Xiu launched another attack. His body was like a huge sharp knife, crashing into Fu Xiu's body. Fu Xiu roared angrily. His stone armor was broken again, and a deep wound appeared. His flesh and bones were exposed, and blood kept flowing out. Man Ku let out a painful roar that was as loud as thunder. Don't you dare hurt young Master Man Ku. If you want to win by numbers, we'll be your opponents. Angry roars were heard. Then, a dozen figures pounced on Fu Xiu and the others like lightning. These were a dozen old barbarians. They were very old and did not have much lifespan left. They were all skin and bones, but they were very strong. Each of them was a peak divine king who had awakened their origin divine power factor 3 times. When Lu Ming first entered this world, he had suffered at the hands of these old barbarians. These old barbarians saw that Man Ku was no match for them and immediately rushed out. You're courting death. You guys continue to trap him. Leave these old guys to me. Fu Xiu's voice was heard. His eyes flashed with a cold light. He flapped his wings and rushed out, making a terrifying whistling sound. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The next moment, from the top of Fu Xiu's head, rays of saber light burst out and slashed at the old barbarians. The saber light whistled at an astonishing speed. The old barbarian who was flying at the front was the first to bear the brunt. Break! The old barbarian roared. He held a giant axe and swung it, trying to break the saber light. However, when the axe hit the saber light, his face changed drastically. He saw that the battle axe in his hand had shattered. The saber light flashed and cut the old barbarian in half, killing him instantly. Chapter 34:22. The other blade lights did not stop and continued to attack the other old barbarians. Puff puff puff, blood flashed, and the blade flashed. 5 to 6 old barbarians were cut in half and died on the spot. Not good retreat. The expressions of the remaining old berserkers changed drastically. They retreated madly, then gathered together to form a rune to fend off Fu Xiu. It's too late to retreat now. Kill! Fu Xiu's cold voice rang out. He flapped his wings and his gigantic body turned into a gigantic blade. He charged towards the old berserkers and crashed into the rune they had set up. A dazzling light shot up into the sky, followed by a loud bang. There was a huge explosion, followed by screams of pain. When the light and screams disappeared, only Fu Xiu was left in the sky, and the old barbarians had disappeared without a trace. A bunch of old fogies who overestimate themselves. Fu Xiu said coldly. Many people sucked in a breath of cold air, especially the barbarians. Their faces were ugly, but they were secretly shocked. Fu Xiu's strength was indeed terrifying. Those old brute tribesmen could be said to be very powerful. Their divine origin force had been awakened for the 3rd time, and their lifespan was not long. They had cultivated for 5 full stellar years, and the power of their various divine skills was extremely terrifying. Their combat strength was almost at the peak of the Divine King realm. However, there was still a huge gap between them and a terrifying heaven's pride like Fu Xiu. They couldn't compete at all. In just a few breaths, a dozen powerful barbarian elders were all killed. Fu Xiu, I want you dead. At this moment, Man Ku let out a furious roar. His body glowed, and he seized the opportunity to madly swing his bronze sword. In an instant, he had slashed out over 1,000 times. The attacks of the 4 experts finally cracked open a crack, and Man Ku burst out. Don't let him escape. Quick, surround him. The 4 young experts shouted. Their figures flashed, and all kinds of entrapment attacks were launched. At the same time, Wuxia also rushed towards Man Ku. However, at this moment, a malevolent expression appeared in Man Ku's eyes. He opened his mouth and a snow-white bone flew out from his mouth. That's right, it was a bone. As soon as the bone flew out, a terrifying aura spread out. Roar. In the next moment, a terrifying roar came from one of the snow-white bones. The loud roar turned into a mysterious aura that spread in all directions. Wuxia and the four geniuses were the first to bear the brunt of this aura. Immediately, their bodies stiffened, and then they revealed looks of pain. All of their attacks stopped in an instant. That loud roar quickly spread into the distance. Many people were enveloped by it. Some people's expressions changed drastically, and some people with lower cultivation levels let out miserable screams. Their faces were filled with pain. It's a soul attack. Get back. Lu Ming's expression changed. He could clearly feel that when that aura passed through his body, it turned into a strange energy that rushed towards his soul. However, his soul was protected by the frightening feather painting, which blocked this energy. But the other members of Dragon Alliance couldn't. Some of them revealed pained expressions and some of them cried out. Hearing Lu Ming's words, they quickly retreated and distanced themselves from him. The others were the same, retreating frantically. The further away they were, the greater the impact. One could imagine how much Wuxia and the other four young experts had been affected by it. Kill. Man Ku roared as he swung his bronze sword at Wuxia. Not good. Wuxia was shocked. At the critical moment, he used all his strength to move sideways, but he was still a step too late. One of his wings was cut off by the bronze sword, and blood stained the sky. Wuxia was shocked and wanted to retreat. But the white bone that Man Ku used let out a loud roar, and a strange energy spread out, causing Wuxia's body to stiffen and his movements to slow down. Soul attack. Lu Ming squinted his eyes slightly. This white bone could affect the soul. It was extremely terrifying. In a battle between experts, a small difference could lead to a huge difference. Although Wuxia and the others were only slightly affected, the outcome of the battle could be worlds apart. Where did this man get this treasure? Did he have a fortuitous encounter recently? Lu Ming's mind raced as he was filled with doubts. The last time he saw Man Ku, his barbarian god body wasn't even at the purple-armored ancient god body. At most, it was at the peak of the blue-armored ancient god body. Moreover, Man Ku definitely didn't have the white bone. Otherwise, he would have used it when Lu Ming forced him into a desperate situation by borrowing the power of the array. But this time, not only did Man Ku have the white bone, but his primordial ancient god body had also surpassed the purple-armored ancient god body and reached the next level. Moreover, it had reached the peak of the next level, and his combat strength had increased by a large margin. Aside from a fortuitous encounter, it was hard to explain. In an instant, many thoughts flashed through Lu Ming's mind, but the battle on the battlefield was still ongoing. Man Ku used the white bone to affect Wuxia, and then continued to slash with the bronze sword. Roar. Wuxia roared, trying his best to control himself to resist Man Ku. At the same time, the other four young experts also attacked. However, their souls were affected by the white bone, and their strength was still affected. Their combat strength was weaker, and their speed was also slower. In an instant, Man Ku and Wuxia exchanged a few moves. Wuxia was no match for Man Ku, and his body was slashed by the bronze sword. A sword wound that was a few hundred meters long appeared on his body, and Wuxia's head was almost cut off. Wuxia was severely injured, and he coughed up blood and retreated. The other four young experts wanted to trap Man Ku again, but Man Ku had already escaped from the encirclement. Moreover, he had the white bone's help, and it was easy for him to escape from the encirclement, and he continued to attack Wuxia. Barbaric god sword, bloody killing god. Man Ku roared, and the dazzling sword light completely enveloped Wuxia. Wuxia tried his best, and the horn on his head flew out to attack Man Ku, but he was sent flying by Man Ku's sword. In the end, Wuxia let out a shrill scream as his neck was slashed by the bronze sword, and his huge head flew out. Then the sky full of sword light fell, and Wuxia's head was smashed into pieces. Wuxia had fallen. Not good. The other four experts were shocked when they saw Wuxia's tragic death, and they quickly retreated. It's too late to retreat now. Man-Ku's cold voice resounded throughout the battlefield, and he strode forward, attacking the 4 experts. Roar! The white bone floated above Man-Ku's head, and it kept roaring. The roar had no effect on Man-Ku, but it had a huge impact on the others. The 4 young experts had to use a lot of energy to protect their souls, and in this way, their strength would be greatly reduced. Man-Ku caught up with the 4 of them in an instant, and the bronze sword turned into a sky full of sword light, and violently slashed at the 4 young experts. The 4 experts joined forces to resist. Originally, with their strength, if they joined forces, they could resist for a while, but now that they were affected by the white bone, it was difficult. Chapter 34-23. The 4 young experts barely managed to block more than 10 moves before one of them was almost cut in half by the battle sword. He retreated frantically and was severely injured. Since one of them was severely injured, the remaining 3 were even weaker. Not long after, all of them were severely injured. Time to send you on your way. Man-Ku's eyes were extremely ferocious. As for the spectators, they were all sighing. It seemed that the chaotic situation in Fengyan Mountain was finally coming to an end. It was going to be unified. Man-Ku had suppressed the crowd. The outcome was set. Especially those from the Dragon Alliance. Their eyes were filled with unwillingness. They had followed Lu Ming and lived a good life. If Fengyan Mountain were to be unified, how could those who followed the barbarian tribe be treated so well? However, the current situation was almost certain. Man-Ku was too strong, and the other experts could not resist him. The outcome of resisting was too tragic. Bing Tong, Lu Tianxin, and Fu Xiu were killed one after another. The remaining 4 experts could not even protect themselves. Although Lu Ming was strong, he was still not as strong as Man-Ku. Just as everyone was sighing, Man-Ku launched a violent attack. The 4 experts were beaten back and vomited blood. Their injuries were even more serious. It seemed that defeat was only a matter of time. I surrender. I'm willing to submit to you and manage Fengyuan Mountain with you. I'll be your deputy. At that moment, a young man shouted, "You're about to die and you want to be the deputy? You must be dreaming." Man-Ku sneered and rejected him directly. "Then I don't want to be the deputy." The young man shouted, "If you want to stay alive, I'll give you a chance. Surrender and swear on your life origin that you'll listen to my orders. Not only in this world, but when you return to the Eldritch universe, you'll listen to my orders for the rest of your life." Man-Ku said ferociously, "What? You? Don't go overboard. I can listen to your orders in this world, but not in the Eldritch universe." The young man shouted. He was a peerless genius and came from a powerful force in the Eldritch universe. His future was bright. He could listen to Man-Ku's orders for a short period of time in this world. But how could he listen to Man-Ku for the rest of his life? "If you don't agree, then die." Man-Ku shouted coldly and slashed out his battle sword, cutting off one of the young man's arms. Then, the sword light slashed horizontally, wanting to kill the young man. "I surrender, I surrender." The young man roared. Under the threat of death, he chose to surrender. Even though he was unwilling to be controlled by the other party for the rest of his life, there was nothing he could do if he were to die. "Take this with you first. Swear it later." A headband appeared in Man-Ku's hand, and he tossed it to the other party. The young man caught the headband, and his expression changed. He was extremely unwilling, but when he felt the intense killing intent from Man-Ku, he finally compromised. Gritting his teeth, he put on the headband. From now on, his life and death would be in Man-Ku's hands. "What about you guys?" Following which, Man-Ku's gaze turned towards the remaining 3 youths. As of this moment, the 3 young men were seriously injured and unable to fight. Man-Ku wasn't in a hurry to attack them. He wanted to subjugate them one by one, which would be very useful to him when he returned to the Your Wilds universe. How foolish! Lu Ming shook his head in his heart and secretly sneered. This Man-Ku must have been blinded by his victory. Making these geniuses swear on their life source to be loyal to him was simply courting death. These geniuses came from the major forces in the Your Wilds universe. Some of them were even stronger than the Taishu dynasty or the barbarian tribe. The prodigies of that faction had sworn to be loyal to Man-Ku forever. If the powerhouses of that faction were to find out about this in the future, they would probably fly into a rage and kill Manku in the dark. Once Manku was dead, the oath would naturally be useless. This was also the reason why most people in this world wouldn't make others swear on their life source. However, Manku didn't think too much about it. He had been blinded by his victory. The remaining 3 youths' faces were extremely ugly. Since you don't want to talk, I'll send you to hell together. Manku's killing intent exploded. Alright, I promise you, I promise. In the end, one of the youths shouted and surrendered to Manku's threat. Put it on. Manku took out a headband and tossed it to the youth. The youth caught it and put it on his head. What about the 2 of you? Following which, Manku looked at the remaining 2 people. You want me to listen to your orders for the rest of my life? Dream on. What's the difference between that and a puppet? You might as well kill me. One of the youths shouted coldly. That's right. Do it. You want me to submit to you for the rest of my life? Impossible. You're not qualified. The second youth shouted. Not everyone had a backbone. These 2 youths had a strong sense of pride and backbone. They would rather die than submit. Since that's the case, I'll send you to hell. Manku's eyes flashed coldly. His aura exploded and he was about to attack. It's time to strike. At this moment, Lu Ming said in a low voice. After the chaotic battle, the situation in Fengyan Mountain had changed drastically. It was time to strike. Moreover, Manku had used up most of his trump cards. Lu Ming was more or less prepared. Lu Ming stepped out and walked towards Manku. This immediately attracted everyone's attention. Now there was still someone who dared to step out. What was he trying to do? Alliance leader. The members of the Dragon Alliance were also shocked. Their eyes flickered. What is he trying to do? The same thought crossed the minds of the others. Manku and the other 2 youths also looked at Lu Ming. Kid, show your true face. Don't hide your head and tail. Manku shouted coldly. Manku, it's been a while. How have you been? Lu Ming smiled. He waved his hand and took off the black robe on his body, revealing his true face. It's you, Lu Ming. Manku exclaimed when he saw Lu Ming. Then he emitted a cold, murderous intent. Manku, it's been a while since we last met. Your cultivation has improved a lot. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Lu Ming, you still dare to attack after seeing my strength. Today will be the day you die. Manku roared. His powerful aura shrouded Lu Ming. He ignored the other 2 youths. In comparison, he wanted to kill Lu Ming more. After all, Lu Ming was a genius of the Taishu dynasty. The Taishu dynasty and the barbarian tribe were mortal enemies. Manku wanted to kill Lu Ming. Lu Ming was not afraid at all. He stepped forward and landed in front of the other 2 youths. His body also emitted a powerful aura. Is this person really going to fight with Manku? Who is this person? Many people were shocked. I know. This person is the alliance leader of the Dragon Alliance. I heard that he is extremely powerful. He fought Bing Tong and Lu Tianxin to a draw. Someone recognized Lu Ming. It's the alliance leader of the Dragon Alliance. Many people suddenly realized. After all, the battle between Lu Ming and Bing Tong and Lu Tianxin had spread throughout Fengyan Mountain. Chapter 34-24. Lu Ming and Manku stood facing each other as their auras clashed. Roar. Lu Ming let out the ancient god's roar. Then his body expanded rapidly and transformed into a purple-armored ancient god. Lu Ming had already reached the pinnacle of the purple-armored ancient god body. Although he was still 10,000 meters tall, his body was covered in dark purple scales that shone brightly. However, the difference between 10,000 meters and Manku's 100,000 meters was still too big. So you've already reached the pinnacle of the 7th transformation of the ancient god body. However, you're too naive if you think you can fight me with that. I'll send you on your way. Manku sneered as he looked down at Lu Ming. He lifted his foot and stomped down on Lu Ming, wanting to stomp Lu Ming to death. Come on. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with battle intent as his body glowed with divine light. At this moment, Lu Ming exploded with all his strength. The battle character art increased his combat strength by 5 times, and the 11 types of divine powers circulated as he threw out a punch. Boom. When the punch landed on Manku's foot, there was a loud explosion. Lu Ming felt as if he had hit a mountain as a terrifying pressure pressed down on Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body shook violently and he retreated continuously. His arm felt numb. If not for the fact that he had cultivated the heavenly fiend golden body and had a strong physical body, he would have exploded. However, Lu Ming managed to block Manku's kick. "You're quite strong." Manku's eyes flashed with surprise. He had not expected that Lu Ming would be able to block his attack with his current strength. "Kid, let's see how many moves you can take." Manku bellowed as he slashed down with his bronze sword. A terrifying sword gleam whistled as it exploded with a terrifying roar. The berserk sword pressure pressed down on Lu Ming from all directions. Tyrannical divine spear, gate of domination, void-shattering sword. Lu Ming let out a long howl. He used all kinds of origin secret techniques, which expanded rapidly and blasted toward Manku. Clang! The void-breaking sword was the fastest, and it collided with the opponent's bronze battle sword. A loud sound rang out, and the void-breaking sword trembled violently before it was sent flying. Next, the bronze battle sword slashed at the ruler's gate, and the ruler's gate was sent flying as well. In the end, it collided with the tyrant god's spear. Wang! The tyrant god's spear violently trembled as a terrifying power passed through the tyrant god's spear and entered Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming continuously retreated as he felt his blood and qi churn as he spat out a mouthful of blood. The ancient cultivation method is indeed powerful. "I will definitely kill you today," Manku shouted coldly. His killing intent became even colder. The stronger Lu Ming was, the stronger his killing intent was. The bronze sword turned into thousands of rays of light, slashing towards Lu Ming. This fellow's strength is indeed formidable. If I were to rely on my own strength, I would definitely be no match for him. Lu Ming sighed in his heart. In comparison, Manku was far superior to Lu Ming in many aspects. For example, the primordial divine body had already reached the peak of the 8th transformation. On the other hand, Lu Ming's purple-armored ancient divine body was only at the peak of the 7th transformation. There was an entire level difference. In terms of divine power of origin, Manku had awakened 4 times and his cultivation was at the peak of the divine king realm. He was 2 levels higher than Lu Ming. What Lu Ming could rely on was the battle character art, and the universe myriad Dao arts 11 types of divine power, and various secret techniques of origin. However, these were not enough to close the gap between them. Now he could only join forces with Qiuqiu. Qiuqiu! With a thought, Qiuqiu wriggled rapidly and turned into an armor that covered Lu Ming's body. At the same time, bolts of lightning covered Lu Ming's body. A metallic life form? Do you think you can fight me with just a metallic life form? Kill both of you, Manku shouted coldly. He was very confident as he slashed down with his bronze sword again. Fight! Lu Ming held the tyrant god spear in one hand and the gate of domination in the other. He soared into the sky and continuously attacked Manku. Boom! 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 The two of them clashed continuously and exchanged more than 10 moves in an instant. For a moment, there was no clear victor. Lu Ming can actually fight Manku? He blocked Manku's attack in a head-on confrontation. Many people were shocked and found it hard to believe. They had seen how strong Manku was previously. He had killed many top heavens prides consecutively, and could be said to be incomparably violent and invincible. Right now Lu Ming was actually able to fight with Manku. This was really incredible. Sizzle. Each of Lu Ming's attacks was accompanied by a huge bolt of lightning that poured into Manku's body along with his attacks. Manku's huge body was covered with lightning. As the lightning attacked, Manku's speed slowed down slightly. This was what Lu Ming wanted. Moon of Moon, Sun of Sun. Lu Ming controlled the 2 origin source secret techniques and floated in the air, sprinkling down rays of light that landed on Manku's body. He wanted to completely melt him in the rays of light. However, the crystal-like stone armor on Manku's body was dazzling. A layer of light appeared and blocked the attacks of the Moon of Moon and Sun of Sunday Clang. Then Lu Ming broke through Manku's attack. The tyrant god spear pierced Manku's chest and made a loud sound. Sparks flew in all directions, but it didn't pierce through. It only left a shallow mark on his body. Ha ha ha, Even if you add the metallic life form, you can't break through my defense. Man Ke laughed loudly, extremely arrogantly. Lu Ming's face sank and continued to attack. Later, Lu Ming attacked Man Ke several times, but he couldn't break through Man Ke's defense. Ha ha ha. Man Ke laughed even more unscrupulously. He completely ignored his defense and attacked Lu Ming crazily. For a moment, Lu Ming was pressured to retreat continuously. Qiu. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Qiu. He planned to use the broken sword form. Lu Ming waved his hand, and the tyrant god spear disappeared. Then, Qiu wriggled and turned into a huge sword that Lu Ming held in his hand. Clang! Lu Ming swung his sword and collided with Man Ke's bronze battle sword. Boundless energy burst out and swept in all directions. However, after Qiu turned into this broken sword, its attack power increased to an astonishing level. Man Ke's body shook violently and retreated continuously. Lu Ming seized the opportunity and slashed horizontally with his battle sword, slashing at Man Ke's chest. Sizzle! This time there was a terrifying sound of friction. Sparks flew in all directions and crystal-like gravel flew everywhere. Impossible! Man Ke's eyes widened as he roared in disbelief, because he felt that his stone armor was about to be broken. Man Ke suddenly stepped on the ground, causing the ground to shake violently. His huge body retreated rapidly, and only stopped after retreating for tens of thousands of meters. He lowered his head and looked at his chest. There was a sword wound on his chest that went straight through the stone armor, revealing his flesh and blood. Blood was flowing out continuously. How is this possible? Man Ke was shocked. His eyes widened. He couldn't believe that his defense had been broken. The barbarian god body was originally good at defense. He had cultivated it to the peak of the 8th transformation. His entire body was covered in crystal armor that was indestructible and couldn't be broken. But now it was broken by Lu Ming's sword. Blood was flowing out. Chapter 34-25. The defense that Man Ke relied on was broken, and this made him a little frightened. This brat deserves to die. Man Ke roared. His eyes were filled with blood-red light. He opened his mouth and a white bone flew out. It was the white bone that he used to deal with Wuxia and the others. When he fought with Lu Ming, he kept it. In his opinion, he didn't need the white bone to deal with Lu Ming. But now he used it again. Brat die. Man Ke roared. At the same time, he activated the white bone. Waves of roars came out from the white bone. A mysterious and terrifying energy rushed towards Lu Ming. It then entered Lu Ming's head and rushed towards Lu Ming's soul. Lu Ming seemed to have seen a terrifying barbarian god dashing into his mind, brandishing his combat sword and slashing at his soul, wanting to shatter it. It seemed that Wuxia and the others had been attacked like this before. However, when the barbarian god attacked Lu Ming's soul, the Jingyu scroll glowed and a layer of light enveloped Lu Ming's soul. When the barbarian god's battle sword slashed at the light barrier shook, but nothing happened. If it was an ordinary person, they would have to spend a lot of energy to control their soul to dodge. This way, their strength would be greatly affected. However, Lu Ming didn't care at all. Of course, Man Ke didn't know that. He thought that Lu Ming's soul was also greatly affected. His face was ferocious, and his killing intent was cold. He waved his bronze battle sword and rushed towards Lu Ming, slashing down at Lu Ming's head. However, Lu Ming swung his sword and deflected Man Ke's bronze battle sword. Then, the battle sword didn't stop and continued to slash at Man Ke. Sizzle. The battle sword slashed on Man Ke's body, producing a piercing sound. Then a deep sword wound appeared on Man Ke's stone armor, penetrating his bones. Man Ke roared in pain and retreated. He shouted in disbelief. Why aren't you affected? Petty tricks. Lu Ming said calmly as he continued to swing his sword towards Man Ke. Man Ke didn't believe it. He did his best to control White Bones. White Bones' roars were like thunder, and the soul attack became even stronger. However, Lu Ming had the protection of the frightening feather painting, so he wasn't affected at all. He continued to attack Man Ke. The two exchanged a few more moves, and Man Ke was once again struck by Lu Ming's sword, leaving a sword wound on his body. Although Man Ke circulated his barbarian god physique with all his might, and the crystal armor on his body was wriggling and healing his wounds, His injuries were real. If this continued, he would become weaker and weaker. "Manku, it seems like you've reached your limit," Lu Ming sneered. "Lu Ming, you're relying on a metallic life form. What kind of ability is that? Do you have the ability to fight me fairly?" Manku roared. "A fair fight? Ridiculous." Lu Ming sneered and said, "That white bone in your hand is also an external object. Is it fair for you to use it against the enemy? Also, your cultivation is 2 levels higher than mine. Is it fair for you to fight me with a cultivation 2 levels higher?" Manku's face turned ugly. However, he didn't dare to fight Lu Ming without using the white bone, and at the same level as Lu Ming. Although he was strong, Lu Ming was even more abnormal. If they fought at the same level, he would definitely be the one to lose. "Brat, don't think you can defeat me. Fuse." Manku roared. Then, the white bone emitted a resplendent radiance and rushed into Manku's body, fusing with his body. Next, a layer of white bone armor appeared on Manku's body, covering his entire body. Clang! Lu Ming slashed his sword on Manku's body again, but this time, a terrifying explosion rang out. Manku's body was forced back, but Lu Ming didn't manage to break through his defense. It can actually be like this. Lu Ming was stunned. Manku fused the white bone into his body, and a layer of white bone armor appeared. It actually increased his defense by a large margin. Even Qiuqiu's battle sword couldn't break through his defense. "You want to kill me? Dream on, dream on." Manku roared. His gaze was extremely ferocious, and he couldn't wait to tear Lu Ming into pieces. He had to pay a price for fusing with the white bone, because he could only fuse with the white bone 3 times. After fusing with it 3 times, the white bone would be completely destroyed. Even the ability to affect the soul would disappear. At a critical moment, it could save his life. Unless it was a last resort, he wouldn't use it. But now, because Lu Ming wasted it once, his heart was bleeding. "Die for me." Manku roared and madly rushed towards Lu Ming, slashing out with his bronze battle sword. However, when Lu Ming swung his sword and clashed with the bronze battle sword, Manku's huge body was shaken, and he was forced back. Although he had fused with the white bone, it only increased his defense. His combat strength didn't change. After repelling Manku, Lu Ming took the opportunity to attack. His sword landed on Manku's body again, but it was still blocked. He couldn't break through Manku's defense. This guy is like a tortoise shell. His defense is comparable to Dandan's." Lu Ming was speechless as he muttered. Then he continued to attack. However, every time Manku was sent flying by Lu Ming, he couldn't break through his defense. Of course, Manku's attack power wasn't enough, and he couldn't cause any harm to Lu Ming. The two of them were in a stalemate. Boom. After another exchange, Manku was sent flying for thousands of miles. His expression was ugly. "Not good, the time for fusion is almost up." Manku was a little anxious. There was a time limit to the fusion of the white bone. Once the time was up, it would disappear. It would be difficult to fuse with it again in a short period of time. However, although he was anxious, he didn't show it on his face. "Lu Ming, my divine power is about to run out." At this moment, Qiuqiu was transmitting a message to Lu Ming. His broken sword form consumed a lot of divine power. After a series of attacks, Qiuqiu's divine power was about to run out. Lu Ming's mind raced, but he didn't show it on his face as he stared at Manku. However, the two of them didn't attack. They looked at each other from a distance. "Kid, you can't break through my defense," Manku said savagely. "You only know how to hide in your tortoise shell. However, the feeling of hitting a sandbag isn't bad." Lu Ming smiled contemptuously. "Humph. I'll spare your life today. However, it's useless for you to rely on this metallic life form. When you can't use this metallic life form anymore, it'll be the day you die." Manku shouted coldly. Then he looked at the two youths with headbands on their heads and said, "Let's go." The two youths were helpless. Then they shouted, "Let's go." Manku turned around and left. The people of the barbarian tribe and his subordinates all followed him. The two youths under his control also took their men and left with Manku. Lu Ming didn't chase after them. At this moment, only about half of the people were left on the mountain peak. "Brother Lu, Thank you for your help. Of the 4 experts who had surrounded Man Ku, 2 of them hadn't been controlled by Man Ku. Halfway through, they had been saved by Lu Ming. Now they thanked Lu Ming. Chapter 34-26. What do you plan to do in the future? Lu Ming asked. In the future? The 2 young men frowned. Now more than half of Fengyan Mountain is in the hands of the Man Alliance. His ambition will not stop. You should know the consequences. Now there is only one path in front of you. Lu Ming said plainly. His eyes were glowing and his meaning was self-evident. The 2 young men looked at each other with a complicated expression. They obviously understood what Lu Ming meant. It was simple. He wanted them to submit to Lu Ming. Now Fengyan Mountain was divided into 2 and there were 2 overlords. They were Man Ku and Lu Ming. If they wanted to establish themselves in Fengyan Mountain, they had to submit to one of them. Do you want me to be direct? Submit to me. I can make you deputy alliance leaders. You don't have to condense divine crystals, and you can get a portion of them. How about that? Otherwise, I will have to take action. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to the 2 young men. Previously, Lu Ming only occupied the territory of the Yuntian Alliance, and did not continue to expand. That was because he was not powerful enough and his wings were not strong enough. However, it was different now. His strength was enough to intimidate Fengyan Mountain. These people would either submit to Man Ku, submit to him, or leave Fengyan Mountain. Deputy Alliance Leader. The 2 young men's eyes lit up. Deputy Alliance leaders did not have to condense origin divine crystals, and they could get a portion of it. Although it was not as good as them controlling a territory, it was much better than submitting to Man Ku. Alliance Leader Lu, thank you for saving us. I am willing to submit to Alliance Leader Lu and join the Dragon Alliance. One of the young men suddenly cupped his fist. I am also willing to join the Dragon Alliance. The second young man also cupped his fist and joined the Dragon Alliance. Great. The 2 of you will be Deputy Alliance leaders after joining the Dragon Alliance. Lu Ming was overjoyed, but he did not show it on his face. After that, Lu Ming looked at the others. What about you? I believe you have heard of the Dragon Alliance's rules. Join the Dragon Alliance, and you can keep 30% of the origin divine crystals you condense. Lu Ming looked at the remaining people. I am willing to join the Dragon Alliance. Me too. The first to agree were the people from the Eastern region. The people from the Soldier Peak Alliance and the Skyheart Alliance agreed without hesitation. Now that Bing Tong and Lu Tianxin were dead, the Soldier Peak Alliance and the Skyheart Alliance had disbanded. They had been eyeing the Dragon Alliance's distribution for a long time. Naturally, they agreed without hesitation. Following that, the other forces in the Eastern region also agreed. The leaders of these forces knew that they couldn't go against the general trend. With Lu Ming's strength, if they didn't agree, they could only leave Fengyan Mountain. If they wanted to stay in Fengyan Mountain, they could only agree. After that, in addition to the forces in the Eastern region, the other regions also agreed. In this way, Lu Ming controlled more than half of Fengyan Mountain's territory. The number of people under him increased rapidly, reaching over 10,000. With so many people, how many primordial divine crystals can we obtain in the future? Lu Ming's eyes lit up. As long as he stayed here for a period of time and stored a large amount of primordial divine crystals, he would have enough resources for a long time in the future. It should be noted that the energy of the star core he obtained back then was almost used up. The energy of the star core could have been used until Lu Ming broke through to the 7th layer of the King God realm. However, although Lu Ming had broken through to the 7th layer of the King God realm, he had relied on the energy of the primordial divine crystals to break through. Hence, there was still some energy left in the star core. However, it wasn't enough to support Lu Ming to break through to the 8th layer of the King God realm. However, with the primordial divine crystals, he wouldn't have to worry about running out of energy. What happened next was simple. Lu Ming started to arrange his men, and took over half of Fengyan Mountain's territory. He was in a standoff with the Man Alliance. In the Man Alliance's territory, Man Ku was furious. Lu Ming, damn you. Man Ku roared. Man Ku bellowed furiously. This time, his original plan was to have complete control over Fengyan Mountain. Unfortunately, Lu Ming had appeared out of nowhere and ruined his plan completely. In the end, Lu Ming had benefited from it. Lu Ming controlled more than half of Fengyan Mountain. This made him extremely unhappy. Humph, you want to share Fengyan Mountain with me? Dream on. Looks like I'll have to ask the Guardian for help. Man Ku muttered. Then his figure flashed and he left the place. After Lu Ming returned, he continued to cultivate in seclusion. So the primordial divine body is divided into 9 transformations. The ancient god technique I obtained is indeed incomplete. Lu Ming frowned as he pondered. After the battle with Man Ku ended, he asked around and finally resolved the doubts in his heart. The cultivation of the primordial divine body was divided into 9 transformations. The ancient god technique he obtained was divided into red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple transformations. They were the first to the 7th transformations. Hence, when Lu Ming cultivated the purple armored ancient god body to the peak, he felt that there were more levels and that he hadn't reached the limit. Every breakthrough was a transformation. The primordial divine body would become stronger. This was why it was called the 9 transformations. The 9th transformation wasn't the limit. He could still break through. However, breaking through after the 9th transformation would bring him closer to the level of the primordial divine spirit. It made sense. Even if he cultivated to the 9th transformation, he would still be miles away from the primordial divine spirit's divine body. For example, Man Ku had cultivated to the peak of the 8th transformation and displayed the barbarian divine body. He was 100,000 meters tall. If he cultivated to the 9th transformation, he would only be 1,000,000 meters tall. However, when Lu Ming cultivated under the primordial divine statue, he could see the primordial divine spirits fighting in the galaxy. The fists of the primordial divine spirits were bigger than a planet of life. How big was a planet of life? 1,000,000 meters was countless times smaller than a planet of life. It was like the difference between an ant and a mountain. Hence, the 9th transformation of the primordial divine body was still far from the primordial divine spirit's divine body. Looks like I have to get the complete version of the ancient god technique as soon as possible. Lu Ming murmured. In this world, there must be others who cultivated the ancient god technique. The complete version would most likely appear. After that, Lu Ming sent out an order to ask the Dragon Alliance if they had the complete version of the ancient god technique. Unfortunately, after some time, they still couldn't find the complete version of the ancient god technique. Lu Ming could only expand his search and purchase the complete version of the ancient god technique from other famous mountains. If he didn't have the complete version of the ancient god technique, his ancient god body would be stuck at the peak of the purple armored ancient god body. It would be difficult for him to break through. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed since the battle with Man Ku. On this day, Tianxing hurried over to see Lu Ming. Alliance leader, the Guardian wants to see you, Tianxing reported with a serious expression. The Guardian. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. A glint flashed across the Guardian's eyes. He smiled and said, "You can see that I'm related to the barbarian tribe." As expected, Lu Ming's heart trembled. He could only brace himself and cupped his fists. "I wonder why Lord Guardian is looking for me. I've heard about your battle with Man Ku. Your strength is indeed amazing. I've been guarding Fengyan Mountain for many years and have seen countless geniuses. However, it's extremely rare to see someone as strong as you." The Guardian said. "Lord, you're flattering me," Lu Ming said, but he had a bad premonition in his heart. "I've heard that you and Man Ku came from the barbarian tribe's territory together. You entered through the tunnel left behind by the barbarian god." The Guardian continued. Lu Ming didn't know what the Guardian was trying to say, so he could only nod. "Let me tell you something. I'm the descendant of the barbarian god in the barbarian tribe's legend," the Guardian said. Lu Ming's heart trembled. His pupils shrank and the bad premonition grew stronger. The Guardian continued. "The barbarian god in the barbarian tribe's legend is an ancestor of the barbarian tribe. He's also my ancestor. He came here a long time ago, but too much time has passed. My ancestor's lifespan has dried up and he passed away. I've been the Guardian here for a few years. I didn't expect to see someone from the same tribe coming here. Of course, I have to take care of them. Don't you think so? After saying that, the guardian stared at Lu Ming, wanting to see Lu Ming's expression. Lu Ming's expression didn't change, but many thoughts were running through his mind. He understood many things now. It turned out that the guardian was from the same tribe as the barbarian tribe. He could be considered a member of the barbarian tribe. No wonder Man Ku's strength increased tremendously after disappearing for a period of time. Especially his primordial divine body. It increased from the peak of the 6th transformation to the peak of the 8th transformation. It was definitely because of the guardian that he could improve so quickly. Even the white bone might have been given to him by the guardian. I'm very satisfied with Man Ku's talent. It's definitely rare in the history of the barbarian tribe. Since he's here, I naturally have to give him a chance so that he can help the barbarian tribe rise in the future and become stronger. Letting him control a famous mountain is a great chance. Do you understand? The guardian continued. At the end of his words, his tone became more serious. His eyes shone brightly, and they pierced out like sharp swords. Lu Ming wasn't stupid. He naturally knew what the guardian meant. He wanted Man Ku to control Fengyan Mountain. Haha. At this moment, Lu Ming suddenly laughed. What are you laughing at? The guardian asked coldly. If Man Ku wants to control Fengyan Mountain, it's simple. Let him challenge me. If he can defeat me, I'll naturally give up Fengyan Mountain. Otherwise, there's no need to talk about it. Lu Ming said. How could it be so easy for him to hand over Fengyan Mountain? Don't you understand what I mean? The guardian's face darkened completely, and the coldness in his eyes intensified. So what if I understand and so what if I don't? If Man Ku wants Fengyan Mountain, he can forget about it. Lu Ming said coldly. Boom. Suddenly, a terrifying aura exploded from the guardian and pressed down on Lu Ming. It was extremely heavy. Lu Ming's body trembled and he almost knelt down. Roar. Lu Ming let out a furious roar and used all his strength to block off the pressure. However, his body still trembled slightly. Divine Lord. The guardian's cultivation was definitely a divine lord. Moreover, he wasn't an ordinary 1st or 2nd heaven divine lord, but someone stronger. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to exert such a terrifying pressure. It seems like you're courting death. The guardian said coldly. You dare to kill me? Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you're a guardian. There are still enforcers above you. The guardian can't interfere with the internal strife of the various famed mountains. You've already violated the rules. If the enforcers know about this, you'll have to bear the consequences. Moreover, when I came out just now, everyone from the Dragon Alliance came to me to meet the enforcers. If you attack me, I guarantee that the enforcers will know about it. Lu Ming shouted. You! How dare you! The guardian's murderous intent surged. He hollered coldly and the pressure became stronger. It was as if he was moving mountains and trampling seas, pressing toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body trembled as he retreated. He spurted out a mouthful of blood and his face turned pale. Brother, you don't have to be so polite. I heard that you have the complete ancient god tactics? Lu Ming asked. That's right. I have the complete ancient god tactics. I can cultivate all the way to the 9th transformation, the peak of the gold-armored ancient god body. The young man said. Gold-armored ancient god body. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. He finally knew what the 9th transformation of the ancient god body was. Give me a price. Lu Ming went straight to the point and asked for the price. I need 5,000 primordial divine crystals. The young man said. 5,000. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. The price was indeed ridiculously high. How precious were primordial divine crystals? When he was at Breeze Mountain, a person could only condense 1 primordial divine crystal every 10 years. Even on a famous mountain, it was a huge sum. Unless one was the leader of a faction, it would take at least a few thousand years for an ordinary person to condense 5,000 primordial divine crystals. However, Lu Ming had plenty of primordial divine crystals now. He did not care. 5,000 primordial divine crystals is fine. But how do I know if the ancient god body is complete? Or is it true? Lu Ming said coldly. That's simple. Just take a look. I believe that with your status, you won't cheat me of the ancient god tactics. The young man smiled, then took out an ancient book and threw it to Lu Ming. Lu Ming reached out to take the book and saw the words Ancient God Tactics written on the cover. Lu Ming flipped it open. The first page introduced the grades of the ancient god body. Like other primordial divine bodies, the ancient god body was divided into 9 transformations. According to the color of the scales, it was further divided into 9 grades: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple, silver, and gold. After the purple-armored ancient god body, it is the silver-armored ancient god body and gold-armored ancient god body. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly flipped through it. He did not study it carefully. He just wanted to see if it was real or fake. The first 7 transformations, from the red-armored ancient god body to the purple-armored ancient god body, were exactly the same as Lu Ming's. Lu Ming flipped to the silver-armored ancient god body and gold-armored ancient god body. With Lu Ming's understanding of the ancient god tactics, it was easy for him to tell if it was real or fake. If it was fake, Lu Ming could easily tell. However, after reading it, Lu Ming found that it was real and there was no problem. Okay, I'll take this ancient god tactics. Here are 5,000 primordial divine gems. Lu Ming waved his hand and a storage ring flew out. There were 5,000 primordial divine gems in it. The young man took it and scanned it with his spiritual consciousness. He smiled and said, "Thank you, Alliance Leader Lu. Goodbye." The young man cupped his fists and left. Soon, the young man came to a secret place in Fengyan Mountain. There was a burly figure sitting cross-legged in this place. If Lu Ming were to see this, he would definitely be shocked. This was because this figure was the guardian of the Wind Cloud Mountain. "Greetings, Guardian." The young man saluted the guardian. "Is it done?" The guardian opened his eyes and asked. "It's done." Lu Ming didn't suspect anything. The young man replied, "Very good. I just changed the order slightly. You won't be able to see through it." Go ahead. This is for sure." The guardian sneered. He waved his hand and a storage ring flew out. The young man was overjoyed. He saluted and left. "Lu Ming, I'll make sure you die a horrible death." The guardian sneered. Lu Ming was naturally unaware of all this. He returned to his place of seclusion and took out the ancient god tactics. He studied it carefully. After a few days, he had more or less studied it thoroughly and started cultivating. He had already cultivated the purple-armored ancient god body to the peak. If he went one step further, it would be the silver-armored ancient god body, which was the 8th transformation of the primordial divine body. However, it wasn't easy to cultivate from the 7th transformation to the 8th transformation. It was extremely difficult. Even with the primordial divine gems, it was still the same. He needed time to train, and it wasn't something that could be broken through overnight. Otherwise, there wouldn't be only a few people who had reached the 8th transformation among all the sky prides in Fengyan Mountain. For example, the leaders of the forces, Bing Tong, Lu Tianxin, and the others had plenty of primordial divine gems. However, the primordial divine body was stuck and couldn't break through to the 8th transformation. It was obvious how difficult it was to break through. Chapter 34-29. In the blink of an eye, a few months had passed. In these months, Lu Ming had been comprehending the ancient god tactic and refining the primordial divine crystal. However, he had not made much progress. Lu Ming was not in a hurry. He knew that haste made waste. He needed to slowly grind. At this time, Lu Ming received news that Manku was leading the Man Alliance to attack the Dragon Alliance. They wanted to take over the Dragon Alliance's territory. "Manku, what the hell are you doing?" Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Manku could not do anything to him. Why would he attack? Lu Ming did not think too much about it. He ended his seclusion and led the Dragon Alliance to fight. Somewhere in the Wind Cloud Mountain, a large number of geniuses were fighting. Manku led a group of people and stood in the air, watching the battle from afar. "They're here," Manku whispered. His eyes shone as he looked forward. There, a few streams of light were rushing over. In the next moment, a few figures appeared in the sky. These figures were naturally Lu Ming and the others. "Manku, are you looking for a beating again?" Lu Ming shouted coldly when he saw Manku. "Humph, shameless boasting. You didn't defeat me last time. If not for that metallic life form, I could have killed you with a flip of my hand." Manku snorted. "If we fight at the same level, I can crush you with a finger." Lu Ming's reply made Manku's face turn gloomy. However, he sneered and said, "Lu Ming, you want me to fight at the same level? You don't have a chance. However, if you can't make that metallic life form help, I will have a chance." After speaking, Manku cupped his fists to a black-robed youth beside him and said, "Brother Fong, wait a moment. I'll leave the other party's metallic life form to you." "Don't worry." The black-robed youth smiled faintly and stepped forward. Lu Ming could not help but look at the black-robed youth. The most eye-catching thing was the snake wrapped around his arm. It was a metallic snake. Its entire body shone with a metallic luster. It was definitely made of metal, and not flesh and blood. "Let's see how powerful my gold-devouring demonic snake is," the black-robed young man said coldly. Then he waved his hand and the metal snake flew out. After flying out, the metal snake madly grew in size until it was tens of thousands of meters long. The giant snake opened its mouth, and a huge mouth appeared. It was like a black hole, emitting a terrifying suction force. Wang. Buzz. At this moment, many of the legendary weapons that were being controlled by the geniuses started vibrating violently. "What happened? I can't control my sword." "Not good." Those youths cried out in alarm, trying their best to control their divine items. But in the next moment, a shocking scene occurred. Their divine items flew out of their control, flying toward the giant snake's mouth. Then they all disappeared into the giant snake's mouth. Those who had lost their divine weapons were naturally the prodigies on Lu Ming's side. These people had lost their divine weapons and were shocked. They were careless and were attacked by the people from the Barbarian League. Instantly, more than 10 of them were killed in midair. "Retreat!" Lu Ming shouted. When his voice rang out, the people from the Dragon League stopped fighting and retreated. "Ha ha ha, my gold-devouring demonic snake eats metals. It can even swallow a divine weapon in one gulp." The black-robed young man laughed. "It's indeed amazing. It can swallow so many divine weapons in one gulp." Lu Ming's eyes flickered. When Qiu ate divine weapons, it took one bite at a time. But this metal snake had swallowed so many divine weapons in one gulp. Its appetite was really good. "Fong Lin, it's Fong Lin." At this moment Bo Yi, who was beside Lu Ming, shouted. "Bo Yi, do you know this person?" Lu Ming asked. "I've seen him before. Leader, his name is Fong Lin. He's not from the Fengyan Mountain. He's an expert from another famed mountain, the Qitong Mountain." Bo Yi said. "Qitong Mountain?" Lu Ming's expression changed. "Fong Lin, there are rules in this world. People from different famed mountains can't interfere with each other. He's from the Qitong Mountain. How dare he interfere with the matters of the Fengyan Mountain? He has violated the rules." Bo Yi shouted. "When did I violate the rules? I'm good friends with Manku. What's wrong with helping him? Besides, I didn't do anything to your people. I brought my gold-devouring demonic snake to look for metals to eat. That's not against the rules, right?" Fong Lin sneered. "You're being unreasonable. I'm going to report you to the Guardian." Bo Yi shouted. "Go ahead. What do I have to fear?" Fong Lin sneered. His fearless look made Bo Yi's face turn ugly. "Bo Yi, there's no need to say anything more," Lu Ming said. This matter was probably approved by the Guardian. Even if he reported it to the Guardian, it would be useless. "Lu Ming, let's settle this today." At this moment, Manku shouted and stepped out. His body swelled rapidly as he displayed the barbarian god physique, turning into a 100,000-meter-tall barbarian god. He clenched his fist and a bronze sword appeared. He slashed at Lu Ming. "Fight!" Lu Ming was fearless. He also displayed the ancient god physique, and turned into a 10,000-meter-tall purple-armored ancient god. At the same time, Qiu wriggled rapidly and turned into armor, covering Lu Ming's body. At the same time, Lu Ming's palm wriggled and turned into a huge sword. Lu Ming and Qiu went all out as soon as they struck. Swoosh! The sword slashed out and clashed with Manku. There was a loud sound. Manku's body trembled, and he retreated a few steps. Metal life form. It's really a metal life form. What a powerful metal life form. Little snake, devour him. Feng Lin shouted with a greedy look. Hiss, the gigantic snake let out a hissing sound. It twisted its huge body and charged toward Lu Ming. At the same time, it opened its mouth like a black hole. A powerful suction force shrouded Lu Ming's entire body. Lu Ming was still fine after being enveloped by this suction force. However, Qiu, who was covering him, began to wriggle rapidly. It seemed to be unable to maintain its armor form, and was about to return to its original form. It works. Manku was delighted. Ha ha ha, such a powerful metal life form. Become my little snake's food. The gold-eater demonic snake is the king of metal life forms. Not only can it eat divine artifacts, it can also eat other metal life forms. Feng Lin laughed wildly as if he could see Qiu being eaten. Moreover, after eating Qiu, his gold-eater demonic snake would become stronger. Swoosh! Qiu, who was on Lu Ming's body, wriggled rapidly and turned into a huge ball. It then flew toward the gold-eater demonic snake. Qiu, Lu Ming was shocked. I'm fine. This snake looks delicious. I'm going to eat it. At this moment, Qiu's voice sounded in Lu Ming's mind. Lu Ming immediately felt relieved. Manku stopped attacking. He wanted to see Lu Ming's metal life form being eaten, and reveal a look of despair. Then he wanted to suppress Lu Ming, and let Lu Ming know the consequences of going against him. Qiu was about to fly into the gold-eater demonic snake's mouth. Lu Ming, if you dare to touch me, I Qi Tongshan will not let you off. Feng Lin's expression changed, and he began to threaten him. Idiot! Lu Ming said coldly. He slashed out with his sword, and a mighty sword light slashed toward Feng Lin. Feng Lin was shocked and frantically retreated. At the same time, Manku also made his move. He slashed out with his bronze sword and blocked Lu Ming's sword light. Brother Feng, we can't do this today. Let's retreat first. Manku transmitted his voice to Feng Lin. Damn it! Feng Lin roared. He was extremely unwilling, but he also knew that he was no match for Lu Ming. There was nothing he could do even if he stayed. I won't let this go so easily. Just you wait. Feng Lin roared and turned to leave. Let's go. Manku led the people of the Barbarian Alliance and turned to leave. Lu Ming did not chase after them. His strength had not made any major breakthrough. Even if he wanted to fight, he would be on par with Manku. There was no need to fight. He led his people back to the Dragon Alliance, and ordered them to tighten the defense in case the barbarian tribe attacked again. I'm going to report this to the Guardian. Bo Yi was indignant, and wanted to report to the Guardian to punish Manku and Feng Lin. Lu Ming did not stop her, although he knew that it would be useless even if he reported it. This matter must have been tacitly approved by the Guardian. However, if he reported it, at least the Guardian would not be so arrogant and brazen. As expected, after a period of time, Manku was not punished. Lu Ming continued to cultivate and strive to make a breakthrough as soon as possible. Today, he had offended Feng Lin, and was afraid that he would not let it go. Feng Lin was not the strongest group of people in Qitong Mountain. The strongest people in Qitong Mountain were the Mountain Master and the Deputy Mountain Master. Mount Qitong was a famous mountain that was unified. The Mount Qitong's Mountain Master's strength was unfathomable. The other Mountain Masters under him were also very powerful. Being ranked in the top 30, they were probably not weaker than Manku. If they were to fight, Lu Ming was not confident even if he had Qiu. He had to continue to make a breakthrough. Soon more than a month had passed. Qitong Mountain and Manku did not make any moves. Rumble. This time, Lu Ming was cultivating in seclusion. Suddenly he felt a tremor. It was as if the entire Fengyan Mountain was shaking. What's going on? Lu Ming's face changed drastically. Fengyan Mountain was one of the famous mountains. It was a place that gave birth to a primordial god spirit. It was huge and sturdy, unlike the mountains in the outside world. What kind of existence could cause Fengyan Mountain to shake? It was unbelievable. Even an expert among the Ser gods would not be able to shake a corner of Fengyan Mountain, let alone shake the entire mountain. Lu Ming ended his seclusion and went out. He was not the only one. The entire Dragon Alliance felt it, and they were all shocked. Rumble. At this moment, Fengyan Mountain trembled again. One could clearly feel that the ground beneath their feet was shaking. It was as though a terrifying beast was moving its body within Fengyan Mountain. What's going on? Could it be that another terrifying primordial god spirit is being nurtured inside Fengyan Mountain? This thought involuntarily flashed across Lu Ming's mind. At this thought, Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. If that was the case, it would be an earth-shattering event. In the current Eldritch universe, primordial god spirits were no longer around. If another primordial god spirit were to appear, it would definitely be an earth-shattering event. The primordial god spirits were too powerful. Any one of them was a pinnacle expert in the Eldritch universe. They were terrifying existences that could shake the universe. Fengyan Mountain shook for a while before it regained its calmness. Could it be a divine energy explosion? At this moment, Bowie spoke. Her eyes were filled with surprise. Divine energy explosion? Lu Ming was puzzled. However, many others had heard of it and were also surprised. Alliance leader, the 13 famous mountains have given birth to primordial god spirits. Therefore, there are terrifying primordial god crystals in the mountains. After a long time, the primordial god chi in the mountains will accumulate to the peak. Then it will explode. It is called a divine energy explosion. Bowie explained. Chapter 34-31. Eruption of divine energy? Will it cause a huge impact? Lu Ming's face changed. If all the divine energy in Fengyan Mountain were to erupt, would it cause a devastating blow to Fengyan Mountain? It won't cause a huge impact. The divine energy in the mountain will automatically find a weak area and erupt. However, the exact location is not fixed and it's hard to determine. There is no pattern to the eruption of divine energy in the famed mountains. Moreover, there will be a long interval between each eruption. I didn't expect that we would be able to witness an eruption of divine energy in Fengyan Mountain. Bowie was amazed and she looked even happier. Could it be that the eruption of divine energy is an opportunity? Lu Ming asked. Of course. Primordial divine spirits are born in the famed mountains, and they are filled with terrifying aura. No one can enter and explore. I'm afraid that even divine lords would be crushed to death if they enter. Therefore, no one knows what's inside the famed mountains. However, to be able to give birth to primordial divine spirits, one can only imagine the situation inside the famed mountains. It will definitely give birth to unimaginable treasures. As for primordial divine crystals, I'm afraid there are countless of them. Every time there's an eruption of divine energy, there will be a large number of primordial divine crystals in the famed mountains. Even more precious treasures will erupt at the same time. This is truly a huge opportunity, Bowie said. Treasures in the famed mountains. Hearing this, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Then his eyes flickered and he said, if that's the case, I'm afraid that the experts from other famed mountains will come and fight for it. No, there are rules in this world. The famed mountains are not allowed to fight or interfere with each other. The eruption of divine energy is Fengyan Mountain's matter, and also our opportunity. Even if the other famed mountains covet it, they can't interfere, Bowie said. That's great. Immediately arrange for people to search for the places where the divine energy might erupt. We have to find the place before the Man Alliance does. Lu Ming instructed. The people from the Dragon Alliance started to take action. During this period, there was no need to condense primordial divine crystals. They could focus on searching for the places where the divine energy might erupt. At the same time, the people from the Man Alliance started to search the mountains. From time to time, people from both sides would bump into each other and erupt into fights. As time passed, Fengyan Mountain trembled more and more violently. It was not far from the divine energy eruption. On this day, Lu Ming received a report that they had found the suspected location of the explosion. The location was actually at the foot of Fengyan Mountain. Lu Ming immediately rushed over with his men. At the foot of the mountain south of Mt. Fengyan, there was a pile of rubble. During this period of time, divine aura was constantly seeping out from this pile of rubble. The divine aura became extremely dense and pervaded the air like mist. This was most likely the weakest spot. The divine qi within the Fengyan mountain was pouring towards this spot, resulting in such a situation. Rumble. When Lu Ming arrived, the area was still shaking slightly. Lu Ming even saw the ground rise and fall, as if a prehistoric beast was about to rush out of the ground. At this moment, Lu Ming looked in another direction. Streaks of rainbow light were flying towards them from that direction. The berserkers really did come. Lu Ming muttered. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Numerous figures flew over from that direction. The one leading them was Man Ku. Man Ku led the Berserker Alliance and stopped in the distance, facing the Dragon Alliance. Man Ku, we were the first to find this place. Bowie shouted. You guys found it first? What a joke. We were the first to find this place, but when my men went back to report to me, you guys took over this place first. Now that we are here, you guys can leave. Man Ku smiled faintly. How shameless. Bowie shouted coldly. Man Ku was obviously lying through his teeth. Lu Ming did not say much. This time, no one would be willing to let go of the divine energy eruption. Even if the berserkers found it first, he would not let it go. Vice versa. There was no point in talking too much. When the time came, strength would do the talking. This time, let's get rid of the berserkers once and for all. A cold light flashed across Lu Ming's eyes. Similarly, Man Ku's eyes were filled with killing intent. Both parties faced each other and waited quietly, waiting for the divine energy to erupt. Time passed by quickly. Day after day passed by. With each passing day, the area began to tremble more and more violently. Soon half a month had passed. Rumble. A loud rumbling sound came from underground. The ground was undulating as if a giant beast was about to emerge. Retreat. Lu Ming and Man Ku both shouted as they retreated with their subordinates to a safe distance. The eruption of divine qi was no small matter. Once the divine qi rushed out, its power was boundless. If one was hit by the divine qi, they would die no matter how strong they were. After the first wave of explosions, the divine qi would weaken. They're coming. Suddenly, someone spoke in a nervous voice. Rumble. The ground exploded, and the pile of rocks in front of him trembled. Then blood-red pillars of light shot out from the ground, and those incomparably hard rocks exploded one by one. In the blink of an eye, over 100 blood-red light pillars appeared on the ground. Furthermore, these light pillars grew larger and larger. In the end, boom. There was an earth-shattering roar, and gravel flew everywhere. A huge blood-red light pillar with a diameter of over 100 miles erupted from the ground. It pierced through the clouds and rushed into the sky. It was a spectacular sight. Be careful. Lu Ming shouted as he set up layers of defense in front of him. The others did the same as well. Gravel constantly flew over like a divine weapon with great power. Divine qi condensed into a shield in front of them, blocking the gravel. What a rich divine qi. Lu Ming took a deep breath and was shocked. The blood-red light pillar was made up of primordial divine qi. It was extremely rich, and many times richer than the primordial divine qi in Fengyan Mountain. In the future, the primordial divine qi in Fengyan Mountain would be very rich, and the speed of condensing primordial divine crystals would increase. It was a great opportunity for the entire Fengyan Mountain, and it would make the other famous mountains jealous. Rumble. The blood-red light pillar continued to erupt as if there was no end to it. After a while, the intensity of the light pillar weakened a little. At this moment, along with the pillar of light, numerous crystals flew out. Primordial divine crystals. The primordial divine crystals are out. Someone exclaimed. The densely packed crystals were all primordial divine crystals. No one knew how many there were, but it was a shocking number. Everyone waited and did not make a move immediately. The primordial divine crystals shot into the sky along with the light pillar, and then scattered in all directions. Chapter 34-32. Moments later. Crash. Primordial divine crystals that filled the sky sprinkled down from the sky like raindrops. Snatch them. Someone roared and rushed towards the sky, pouncing on the primordial divine crystals. Attack. They're mine. At this moment, everyone moved and rushed towards the sky to snatch the primordial divine crystals. Most of them had gone crazy and were frantically snatching the primordial divine crystals. This was a rare opportunity, and it belonged to whoever snatched it. There was no need to hand it over. It was much faster than slowly accumulating it. No one would complain about having too many primordial divine crystals, as they were priceless treasures. Lu Ming also rushed towards the sky and condensed his divine force into a giant hand. With a wave of his hand, hundreds of primordial divine crystals were caught. In just a few moments, Lu Ming had obtained a few thousand primordial divine crystals. There were tens of thousands of people in Fengyan Mountain, Dragon League and Man League. No matter how many primordial divine crystals there were, it wasn't enough for them to snatch. Soon, all the primordial divine crystals were about to be snatched clean. Conflict erupted. Get lost. These primordial divine crystals are mine. You're the one who should get lost. I saw it first. Then I'll send you on your way. Loud roars resounded as blade radiance and sword radiance flashed. Loud rumbling sounds could be heard in the sky as many people were engaged in a fierce battle. Then, screams could be heard as someone was killed and blood dyed the sky red. This was like a fuse as the scope of the battle expanded rapidly. Soon, more than half of the people from Dragon League and Man League were involved in an intense battle. Of course, no one dared to fight beside Lu Ming, Bo Yi and the others. Ordinary Man League disciples didn't even dare to fight with them. Swoosh! Lu Ming's figure flickered as he continued to snatch the primordial divine crystals. At this moment, the light pillar formed by the primordial divine qi in Fengyan Mountain was getting smaller and weaker. However, there were still primordial divine crystals flying out. That's Divine Force Origin Bead. Suddenly Lu Ming's eyes flashed and a dazzling radiance burst out from them. He saw two treasures flying out from Fengyan Mountain, along with the primordial divine crystals. They were clearly Divine Force Origin beads. Inside the Fengyan Mountain, there was actually a Divine Force Source bead. A Divine Force Source bead that could awaken an Origin Source secret technique. Back then, the Nine Sabers Heavenly King had used a Divine Power Source bead to cause the geniuses in the Nine Extinction, Heavenly King Mansion to kill each other. In the end, the Divine Power Source bead was obtained by Lu Ming. Such treasures were extremely rare, and could only be found by chance. Now that two of them had appeared at the same time, how could Lu Ming miss out on this opportunity? With a movement of his body, Lu Ming dashed toward the Divine Power Origin bead. On the other side, Man Ku also saw the Divine Power Source bead. Greed flashed across his eyes. Although he had already awakened the Source secret technique, the Godly Power Source Pearl's attribute determined its value. It was too precious. It had to be known that many Divine Lord Realm existences had yet to awaken an Origin's secret technique. A Divine Power Origin bead was enough to drive these Divine Lords crazy. Man Ku also rushed towards the God Power Source Pearl. As he rushed out, his body rapidly swelled up, turning into a huge barbarian god. He was 100,000 meters tall, standing between the heavens and the earth. He grabbed towards the God Power Source Pearl, wanting to grab it. Scram! Lu Ming shouted coldly. He also turned into his purple-armored ancient god body. Then the ball wriggled and covered his entire body. A battle sword condensed in his hand, and he slashed out. A dazzling sword light slashed onto Man Ku's palm. Man Ku's arm trembled, and he couldn't help but retract it. The two Divine Power Source beads flew past Man Ku's hand. The Divine Power Source beads are mine. Man Ku roared. The bronze battle sword appeared, and he slashed towards Lu Ming. At this moment, the battle character manual in Lu Ming's Sea of Consciousness was shining brightly, and it vibrated slightly. This was Lu Ming activating the battle character manual to increase his combat strength by 5 times. Now the battle character manual had 5 times combat strength, and Lu Ming had cultivated it to a 1 in 7 chance. Every time he activated it, he would succeed. Boom. Lu Ming succeeded in activating it, and he went all out, slashing his sword towards Man Ku. Dang. The battle sword clashed with Man Ku's bronze battle sword, and Lu Ming still had the upper hand. The bronze battle sword bounced back, and Man Ku retreated continuously. Then Lu Ming took a step forward, and his battle sword continued to slash towards Man Ku. Attack! Man Ku suddenly shouted. At this moment, A figure wrapped in a black robe suddenly appeared in front of Man Ku, holding a round ball in his hand. The round ball shone brightly, and it rapidly expanded. There seemed to be mountains and lakes carved on it, and it looked like a planet. It flew towards Lu Ming. Boom! Lu Ming's sword slashed at the round ball, and it shook violently. However, Lu Ming's sword was also blocked. Lu Ming's face froze. In the Man Union, other than Man Ku, who else could block his sword? Swoosh! At this moment in the sky, another black-robed figure flashed. He was as fast as lightning, and he grabbed the 2 divine power source beads in his hand. Then he appeared beside Man Ku. Who are you? Hide your head and show your tail. Show your true face. Lu Ming coldly shouted. If you want to know, let's see if you have the ability to do so. One of the black-robed figures sneered. Kill. Lu Ming couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with the other party. He held his battle sword and attacked. Attack. Man Ku roared. He opened his mouth, and the white bone flew out again. Man Ku's expression was one of pain as the white bone flew towards him and fused with him, transforming into a set of white bone armor that covered his body. With the protection of the white bone armor, Man Ku's confidence increased greatly. He roared and waved his bronze battle sword, launching a storm of attacks at Lu Ming. The other 2 black-robed figures flashed, and they also attacked Lu Ming. Union leader, we're here to help you. At this moment, Bowie shouted. He and the other vice-union leader wanted to help Lu Ming, but another black-robed figure appeared in front of them. This person held a halberd. When the halberd slashed out, the Qilin roared, and a few huge Qilins flew out, rushing towards Bowie and the vice-union leader. Boom! Boom! 2 violent explosions sounded. Bowie and the vice-union leader's expression changed, and they retreated rapidly. They weren't a match at all. Qilin halberd, you're Lin Xian. Bowie shouted. His expression was very ugly. Lin Xian was the vice leader of another famous mountain, Qitong Mountain. The vice leaders of other famous mountains actually interfered in the Battle of Fengyan Mountain. If you don't want to die, get lost. The youth holding the halberd, Lin Xian, shouted coldly. He turned around and attacked Lu Ming, wanting to besiege Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming slashed out more than 10 times, and the sword light filled the sky. Although Man Ku's defense was strong enough, his attack power was still weaker than Lu Ming's. He was hit by the sword light, and he was forced to retreat. The other 2 black-robed figures were even weaker, and they were sent flying by the violent sword light. You do have some strength. It seems that if I don't use my strongest move, I won't be able to take him down. One of the black-robed figures shouted coldly. Suddenly he roared, and the black robe on his body exploded, revealing his true appearance. Chapter 34-33. A black-robed man's black robe exploded, revealing his true appearance. Then his body swelled up rapidly and turned into a huge tiger. The tiger had a single horn and a pair of wings. Its body was covered in blood-red scales. That was the primitive divine body. What was shocking was that the primitive divine body was huge, almost the same size as Man Ku. 8th transformation of the primitive divine body. That was obviously the 8th transformation of the primitive divine body. Then another black-robed man's body swelled up rapidly and turned into the primitive divine body. He was a huge wolf with 3 heads. His body was huge and not any weaker than Man Ku. Another 8th transformation of the primitive divine body. Then Lin Xian also used his primitive divine body and turned into a huge golden ape. He was 100,000 meters tall and held a huge halberd in his hand. He was also at the 8th transformation of the primitive divine body. The 3 experts, together with Man Ku, made a total of 4 people. They surrounded Lu Ming. Their violent aura was like a vast ocean, filling the entire area. This scene shocked the others. Those people who were fighting couldn't help but stop and look over in shock. It's you guys. Damn it. How dare you? Obviously, Bowie recognized the 3 of them. He yelled and then said to Lu Ming, Alliance Chief, they are the Deputy Lords of Qitongshan. There are a total of 3 Deputy Lords of Qitongshan. All of them are here. Lin Xian is ranked in the top 30 on the Divine King list. Deputy Mountain Masters of Qitong Mountain? No wonder. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. No wonder they were so powerful. Especially Lin Xian, who was ranked in the top 30 on the God King list. The God King list was a list selected by the people of this world. It only listed the top 30 strongest geniuses, and each of them had shocking combat strength. Qitong Mountain has interfered with the matters of Fengyan Mountain. You have seriously violated the rules. If the Guardian knows about this, you will be in deep trouble, Bowie shouted. Hee, this is only the foot of Fengyan Mountain. We have not climbed up the mountain, Lin Xian quibbled. Nonsense. This is the territory of Fengyan Mountain, Bowie shouted. Why are you talking nonsense with them? Let's kill Lu Ming first. Man Ke shouted as he brandished his bronze sword and charged towards Lu Ming. At the same time, Qi Tongshan's 3 deputy mountain lords also moved, charging towards Lu Ming. The 4 experts attacked Lu Ming from all directions. Their attacks were like a torrential storm. Lu Ming's gaze was very cold. Needless to say, the fact that Qitong Mountain's deputy mountain chieftain dared to kill his way here must have been tacitly approved by the guardian of the barbarian tribe. He could only rely on himself now. Kill. Lu Ming let out a long roar as various secret techniques of the origin emerged from his body. They separated into 4 waves and attacked Man Ke, Lin Xian and the others. As for Lu Ming, he brandished his sword and charged towards the 3-headed giant wolf. Man Ke's defense was too strong and not easy to deal with. But for the others, it was impossible for their defense to be as abnormal as Man Ke's. Roar, roar, roar. The 3-headed giant wolf let out a loud roar and spat out 3 beams of light, directly blasting away Lu Ming's secret techniques of the origin. Lu Ming's cultivation was still a little weak after all. With his own strength, even if he used his secret techniques of the origin, he still couldn't defeat these people. After the secret techniques of the origin were blasted away, the beams of light continued to blast towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming swung his sword and chopped down, directly splitting the 3 beams of light in half. Then he continued to attack the 3-headed giant wolf. The 3-headed giant wolf's expression changed. Clearly, Lu Ming's attack power had exceeded his expectations. With another 3 roars, 3 bolts of lightning shot out from his mouth, transforming into 3 swords and slashing towards Lu Ming. At the same time, Lin Xian, Man Ke, and the other 2 also blasted away Lu Ming's secret techniques of the origin and charged towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming was helpless. He could only give up on attacking Man Ke and dodge with all his strength. His figure flashed continuously, narrowly avoiding the attacks of these people. You can't dodge. Lin Xian's cold voice rang out. The Qilin battle halberd slashed down horizontally. The Qilin roared and pounced towards Lu Ming with terrifying power that could tear apart the void. Man Ke roared as he waved his bronze sword and attacked from another direction. On the other hand, the one-horned giant tiger controlled a huge ball and pressed it towards Lu Ming. The 3-headed giant wolf laughed wildly as 3 lightning swords slashed towards Lu Ming. Every attack was extremely terrifying and could easily kill a large number of peak divine kings. Lu Ming didn't dare to be careless. He waited with rapt attention as he waved his sword continuously, forming an airtight defense around himself. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying explosions continued to erupt. In the end, the attacks of the 4 experts were all blocked by Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's face also paled. The rebounding force wasn't pleasant. Not good. If this continues, Qiuqiu's divine power will be exhausted soon. Lu Ming thought to himself. However, the 4 experts on the other side weren't any weaker than him. The 4 of them joining forces was too powerful. Fight! Lu Ming's eyes revealed a ruthless look. At this point, he could only fight with his life on the line. Qiuqiu, you have to hold on, Lu Ming muttered as he rushed forward. He was still rushing towards the 3-headed giant wolf. Although the 3-headed giant wolf's attack power was very high, its defense was relatively weak. Moreover, it was the easiest to deal with among the 4 experts. In the process of rushing out, Lu Ming's body lit up continuously. 9 layers of crimson gold armor and ice shackles wrapped around Lu Ming. At Lu Ming's current level, although the 9 layers of crimson gold armor and ice shackles weren't enough, they could at least increase his defense, right? Kill! Lu Ming shouted as the battle sword in his hand slashed towards the 3-headed giant wolf like a storm. At the same time, all kinds of secret origin techniques bombarded the three-headed giant wolf. Lu Ming only focused on the three-headed giant wolf's attacks. As for the others' attacks, Lu Ming didn't feel like paying attention to them. The three-headed giant wolf roared as it spat out one attack after another, but they were all defeated by Lu Ming. At the same time, Man Ku, Lin Xian and the other two's attacks also landed on Lu Ming's body. Almost in an instant, the ice shackles and 9 layers of crimson gold armor were shattered. One attack after another landed on Lu Ming's body. Immediately Lu Ming's body shook violently. Qiuqiu's armor violently squirmed, becoming incomparably hard and blocking all kinds of attacks. However, some places were still broken through. For example, Lin Xian's Qilin battle halberd directly tore a hole in Qiuqiu's armor. A terrifying power poured into Lu Ming's body. Immediately, blood flowed wildly. But fortunately, Qiuqiu blocked the majority of the power. Furthermore, Lu Ming cultivated the demonic golden body. His body was powerful, and his vitality was extremely tenacious. He forcibly blocked this attack. As for Man Ku and the Horned Tiger's attacks, they were forcibly blocked by Qiuqiu's armor. However, some of the power passed through the armor and poured into Lu Ming's body, causing Lu Ming's body to shake violently. But in the end he still managed to block it. Kill! Lu Ming roared as his attacks didn't stop. He stared at the three-headed giant wolf and slashed down with his sword. Chapter 34-34. Lu Ming stared at the three-headed wolf, his sword light raining down like a storm. The two of them exchanged more than a dozen moves, but in the end, Lu Ming was stronger. He broke through the three-headed wolf's attack, and when his sword light landed on the wolf's body, blood splattered everywhere. One of the three-headed wolf's heads was forcibly cut off by Lu Ming. The three-headed wolf let out a wail and retreated. Kill! Lu Ming shouted and continued to charge toward the other party. Courting death. Man Ku, Lin Xian and the others roared. All kinds of attacks once again bombarded Lu Ming. Lu Ming still didn't dodge, taking everyone's attacks head-on. His body staggered and he almost fell, but he managed to hold on. His attacks didn't stop as he continued to attack the three-headed wolf. The three-headed wolf was heavily injured after losing one of its heads. Its strength declined, and it was no match for Lu Ming. Although it rapidly retreated and set up several dozen defenses in front of it, it was still struck by Lu Ming's sword, leaving a deep sword wound on its chest. Just as Lu Ming was about to take the opportunity to pursue, Man Ku madly charged forward. With shocking speed, he arrived in front of the three-headed wolf, resisting Lu Ming's attack. With Man Ku's defensive power, Lu Ming could only force him back. It was hard for him to break through his defenses. What a pity! Lu Ming sighed inwardly. The other side had too many people, and they had to support each other. It was still difficult for him to focus on one person. Following that, Lu Ming changed direction and attacked the one-horned tiger. Both sides engaged in a fierce battle. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged several dozen moves. It had to be said that Qiuqiu's strength was getting stronger and stronger, closer and closer to the divine monarch realm. Moreover, Qiuqiu had swallowed a large amount of divine tools along the way, and there was no lack of defensive divine tools like shields. Among the 4 great experts, only Lin Xian could truly break through Qiuqiu's defenses and injure Lu Ming. But with Lu Ming's tenacity, he was able to withstand it. Therefore, even though the opponent had the upper hand in the fierce battle, he was still unable to kill Lu Ming. This fellow's metallic life form's defensive power is too great. What do we do? Man Ku secretly transmitted his voice to the others. No matter how strong his defense is, he will still die. Force him to the hole where the primordial divine energy is erupting and blast him into the interior of Fengyan Mountain. He will definitely die. Lin Xian's expression was ferocious as he also transmitted his voice. That's right. The inside of this famed mountain is filled with an incomparably terrifying pressure. Even a peak divine lord will die if they go in. If this brat goes in, he will die without a doubt. Let's do this. Man Ku's eyes lit up. At this moment, the three-headed giant wolf had recovered a little and charged back. However, it only followed Man Ku and did not dare to leave. The 4 experts surrounded Lu Ming and attacked him continuously. Slowly, Their battlefield shifted to the top of the hole where the primordial divine chi was erupting. At this moment, the primordial god chi was almost fully released. However, there were still primordial god crystals flying out from time to time. It's time. Suppress them. At this moment, Lin Xian shouted coldly. With a wave of his hand, a stone pagoda appeared. This stone pagoda was 100 stories tall. It rapidly expanded and turned into an incomparably huge stone pagoda. Like a mountain, it suppressed Lu Ming. Break it. Lu Ming brandished his battle sword and slashed at the stone pagoda. He wanted to blast the stone pagoda away. Clang. The battle sword slashed at the bottom of the stone pagoda, causing the stone pagoda to shake. However, the bottom floor of the stone pagoda suddenly exploded, forming a terrifying gravitational force that pressed down on Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body involuntarily fell into the hole. Oh no, they want to force me into the interior of the famed mountain. Lu Ming's expression changed. With his current cultivation, he would definitely die if he entered the interior of the famed mountain. No matter how tenacious Qiuqiu's vitality was, it would still be crushed into ashes by the terrifying pressure. The interior of the famed mountain was the place where the primordial divine spirit was born. What kind of existence was a primordial divine spirit? It could kill a group of divine lords with a single breath. It was a peak existence in the primitive universe. Charge! Lu Ming shouted and executed the Garuda technique to the extreme. He turned into a Garuda and was about to soar into the sky. However, the stone pagoda began to explode again. Moreover, several floors exploded consecutively. Boom, boom, boom. Several terrifying gravitational forces rushed towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming's upward momentum was immediately obstructed. Slash! Lu Ming shouted and brandished his sword continuously. He wanted to break through the gravitational force. However, after barely breaking through the first layer, several more layers pressed down on him. Lu Ming's body continued to fall. Haha, you want to charge out after being suppressed by my 100 layers pagoda? How naive. Go down and explode. Lin Xian laughed and shouted. The stone pagoda continued to press down on Lu Ming. At the same time, several floors exploded. Every time a floor of the stone pagoda exploded, a gravitational force pressed down on Lu Ming. Lu Ming continued to fall. Alliance Master, it's over. At this moment, the members of the Dragon Alliance who saw this scene sighed deeply. Lu Ming was blasted down from Fengyan Mountain. Only death awaited him. It was impossible for him to survive. Retreat, let's retreat quickly. At this moment, Bowie shouted and gathered the members of the Dragon Alliance. Then they retreated. Although the explosion of primordial divine energy had not ended, and there were still primordial divine crystals exploding, they could no longer care about the primordial divine crystals. With Lu Ming dead, no one could stop Manku, not to mention the 3 vice mountain lords of Qitangshan. If they continued to fight for the primordial divine crystals, only death awaited them. They retreated towards Fengyan Mountain. Manku glanced at them and did not ask anyone to pursue. I'll let you live for a while longer. Manku snorted. It was better to collect the primordial divine crystals first. As for the Dragon Alliance, without Lu Ming, it would be destroyed by him sooner or later. Explode, 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 Lin Xian shouted and formed seals with both hands. He controlled the stone pagoda to explode continuously. Waves of gravity pressed down on Lu Ming continuously. Lu Ming was unable to charge forward. Every time the gravity pressed down on him, his body would fall down by a large margin. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming had fallen over 10,000 meters. Dong dong dong. At this point, Lu Ming's ancient god heart started to beat violently. That was because of the pressure coming from all directions. The further down he went, the more terrifying and shocking the pressure in all directions. Lu Ming felt that it was difficult for him to breathe. However, the stone pagoda continued to press down. There were a total of 100 levels, and the gravity was endless. Lu Ming's body continued to fall crazily. When he had fallen 30,000 meters, the pressure was already terrifying. Lu Ming's body was in intense pain, and his bones were cracking. He could not hold on any longer, and was about to break. Bloody scars appeared on the surface of his body. Blood flowed out continuously. Even with Qiuqiu's protection, it was useless. Moreover, Qiuqiu was not in a good condition either. It squirmed and curled into a ball. It was hard for it to protect itself and Lu Ming. Chapter 34-35. It's so painful. Qiuqiu screamed in agony. His body was wriggling and even emitting green smoke. Qiuqiu, hang in there. We won't die. Hang in there. Lu Ming shouted. At the same time, thoughts were running through his mind as he tried to come up with a solution. In an instant, dozens of ideas and solutions flashed through his mind. However, none of them worked. The main reason was that the pressure outside was too strong. At this moment, Lu Ming couldn't even move. The stone pagoda above couldn't withstand the pressure and was trembling constantly. However, in the next moment, the stone pagoda exploded violently. Initially, there were still over 50 floors of the stone pagoda that hadn't exploded. At this moment, the remaining 50 floors exploded in an instant. Over 50 gravitational forces pressed down on Lu Ming. It's over. A thought popped up in Lu Ming's mind. Subsequently, over 50 gravitational forces pressed down on Lu Ming and Qiuqiu. The two of them fell down like two meteorites. In an instant, they had descended over 100,000 meters. After descending to this point, Lu Ming scanned his surroundings and was shocked. This was an underground space. It was obviously the inner region of Fengyan Mountain. The space was huge and filled with dense blood-red mist. It was primordial divine qi. On the surrounding walls, there were longan-sized crystals that were blood-red in color. Primordial divine crystals. All of them were primordial divine crystals. They were scattered all over the walls. How many of them were there? Millions? Tens of millions? Lu Ming didn't know. In short, there were countless of them. How long had Fengyan Mountain existed? When the primordial divine qi in this place reached a certain level, it would condense into primordial divine crystals. By now, it was unknown how many primordial divine crystals had appeared. At this moment, blood radiance appeared on Lu Ming's body. His body was cracking and disintegrating. The pressure here was so strong that it was terrifying. As soon as Lu Ming entered, his body was about to disintegrate under the pressure. It hurts. I'm going to die. Qiuqiu screamed as cracks appeared on his metallic body. What a pity, Lu Ming sighed. What was the use of having so many treasures here? He couldn't even survive, let alone obtain any treasures. Seeing that Lu Ming's body was about to disintegrate, at this time, the space between Lu Ming's eyebrows began to shine. The purple copper coffin that had been kept in the frightening feather painting actually flew out on its own. As soon as the purple copper coffin flew out, it emitted a gentle light that enveloped Lu Ming and Qiuqiu. As soon as he was enveloped by this light, the pressure from the outside world instantly disappeared without a trace. Lu Ming panted heavily. He felt that his body was extremely relaxed. Qiuqiu was about the same. It had shrunk into a ball and was panting with its mouth wide open. We're saved. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He didn't expect that at this critical moment, he would be saved by the purple copper coffin. In fact, he had wanted to take out the purple copper coffin before this, but his body was suppressed by the pressure from the outside world. He couldn't even take it out even if he wanted to. This is the place where the primordial divine spirit was born. The purple copper coffin is actually able to withstand the pressure here. It's really mysterious. What exactly is inside the purple copper coffin? What kind of secret does it hold? Lu Ming sized up the purple copper coffin as thoughts ran through his mind. He even suspected that there was a living primordial divine spirit in the purple copper coffin. Because the purple copper coffin was revealing information related to the primordial divine spirit, Lu Ming couldn't help but think this way. Even if there wasn't a living primordial divine spirit, it was very likely that there was a fallen primordial divine spirit. Otherwise, how could it be so mysterious? Shaking his head, Lu Ming shook his head to get rid of his wandering thoughts. He then sized up his surroundings. This place was almost the bottom of Fengyan Mountain. The primordial divine qi was so dense that it couldn't be dispersed. The surrounding walls were filled with primordial divine crystals. Afterward, Lu Ming's eyes widened when he looked at the bottom of the cave. On the ground at the bottom, there was a blood-red fluorescent glow. There was a large pile of longan-sized crystals. All of them were primordial divine crystals. At a glance, there were countless of them. There were many times more than the primordial divine crystals on the surrounding walls. That is, suddenly Lu Ming's eyes widened. He found another kind of treasure among the piles of primordial divine crystals. It was the divine force source bead. Yes, at a glance, he saw at least 10 divine force source beads. This was only what he saw. There were definitely more than that. In addition, Lu Ming also saw a few plants. They were swaying and emitting dazzling rays of light. Treasures. Plants that grew in such an environment were peerless treasures. They were priceless treasures. The outside world's legends weren't wrong. There were indeed countless treasures in Fengyan Mountain. If the treasures here were to be seen by the people outside, they would definitely go crazy. I'm rich. I'm rich. Ha ha ha. Lu Ming looked around in a daze. He almost drooled and laughed foolishly. How many resources were there? If he brought them out, it would definitely shock the Taishu dynasty. What kind of force could he develop into? With these treasures, Lu Ming wouldn't need to fight with others in the future. He could use money to kill others. Lu Ming was fantasizing about the beautiful days in the future. At this moment, there was another change in the purple copper coffin. With a cracking sound, the lid of the purple copper coffin opened by itself, leaving behind a small gap. Lu Ming was shocked. His hair stood on end. His body tensed up and his heartbeat accelerated. The purple copper coffin opened by itself. What's going on? Could there really be a living creature in the purple copper coffin that wanted to crawl out? At the thought of this, Lu Ming broke out in cold sweat. Click. The lid of the purple copper coffin continued to open. It slowly became bigger. Finally, an inch-wide crack appeared. Strange. There isn't that terrifying aura. Although Lu Ming was shocked, he still felt that it was strange. In the past, when Lu Ming opened the purple copper coffin on his own initiative, as long as there was a crack thinner than a fan, a terrifying aura would spread out. That aura was so powerful that even he couldn't bear it. It contained a terrifying danger. But now, the purple copper coffin opened by itself to an inch-wide gap, but there wasn't a trace of strange aura released. What the hell? Could there really be a living creature inside? Lu Ming's heart tightened. It was too similar. It was like when he opened the purple copper coffin. The existence inside was unhappy. That was why it emitted that terrifying aura. But when it opened itself, it wouldn't emit that kind of aura because it was voluntary. The next moment, something happened that made Lu Ming wail. A powerful suction force suddenly erupted from the purple copper coffin, enveloping all directions. Suddenly, the surrounding primordial divine chi madly gathered toward the purple copper coffin, and was sucked into it. Not only that, but the primordial divine crystals on the ground and walls also moved. They flew toward the purple copper coffin and disappeared into it. No! Lu Ming screamed miserably. He watched helplessly as countless primordial divine crystals flew into the purple copper coffin. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.